It's more been time. I'm sorry, I had to do it one time because, in the words of Bill Maher, it was just stupid enough to go viral. It is Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week, we're going to be reviewing the penultimate episode of Daredevil Season 1, and we'll be talking about the first half of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Well, just when we thought we were out of the Star Wars controversy quagmire, something had to drag us all down. We'll talk all about that in great detail. But first, I have to introduce my co-host, one of the real ones, Jacob Martin. Jacob, how you doing, good sir?
I'm doing all right. I got a little bit of a headache while we're recording, but I think I'm okay enough to talk with you again about some amazing content. Saw Daredevil just before we started recording. That was great. I can't wait to talk Obi-Wan, and I think we're going to have another good podcast. How are you doing this week?
I am beyond excited. As of this episode will be going up on Wednesday, that means that in 2 days' time, I will be on my way to Utah to see my friend Rachel. We're going to be swimming in the Great Salt Lake Open Swim, seeing a ton of Broadway shows. Just a bit of a programming note, I'm going to be making a bit of a vlog for the channel, so I'm going to take you all with me, so to speak.
Nice.
And I'll be posting on social media and letting you all know what I'm doing, so I'm not leaving you all out in the cold if you are interested in seeing what I do. But it's going to be so much fun. I am so looking forward to this. I haven't traveled seriously since 2018 when I went to Germany for an alumni trip at my university. So this is, and after COVID and everything is seemingly like, okay, we're starting to do the travel thing. We're all collectively like stepping a toe back out into the travel world, so to speak, or at least that's what I'm doing. It's gonna be fun. Seeing Rachel is literally been like 2 years in the making. You know, I remember the thing that we always like to tell each other is that when COVID started and the lockdowns happened, we were like, oh, it's just gonna be like 2 or 3 weeks, and you know, we'll just move on with our lives. And now I'm like going out to like see her in her actual house where she actually lives, and it's so surreal to think that she and I have become such good friends in such a short time. But anyway, I'm rambling. I'm just looking forward to heading out west because living in Florida, I do genuinely love living in Florida. It's a very beautiful state. I know people like to dunk on it for a variety of reasons, but Florida is legit beautiful. The beaches, the swamps, the whole nine. But I low-key love going out west. I love when my dad and I went to Yellowstone, it was like, dang, I could live here for a while because the mountains and the blue skies and just kind of the nothingness. I loved just the open like plains, so to speak. And so, like I said, long story very short, I am very much looking forward to my trip.
Yeah, I can't wait to check out your vlog video as well. I think you're going to have an amazing time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Well, let's dig into what we've been watching lately because we honestly haven't been doing that the past couple of episodes because, well, Top Gun Maverick is a thing, and shouts out to that movie for having a killer second weekend, like breaking that record. And then we had the June movie preview, which doing those monthly previews is honestly some of my favorite episodes that we do here. I just love talking about the movies that are upcoming, but that's just me. But it's nice to return back to our old reliable. So Jacob, I see you've been watching lately on your channel. I see in your Billy Wilder series you just did Avanti. I was actually watching that before we were recording.
Oh wow! But the movie or my video?
I was watching your video.
Oh, okay. That's a fascinating movie there, Avanti. One, because it came out in 1972. It was one of his later films. And two, it was his first R-rated film. And he does go there when it comes to the R rating. And the main reason the movie's rated R is because there's an extended joke involving boobs, pretty much. And that's the only reason it got an R rating. And so when I saw that on screen female nudity in a Billy Wilder film, that caught me off guard. I'll tell you that. But the movie itself is okay. I like the cinematography. There's good performances in there. I mean, you can't go wrong with Jack Lemmon. And in this movie, he's paired with Juliette Mills, who, come to find out, is the younger sister of Haley Mills, who was in a bunch of Disney films from the 60s, like The Parent Trap, for instance. I like their chemistry in the movie, and there's some funny sequences in the movie. But this comedy did not need to be 2.5 hours long. It's a very simple story of Jack Lemmon traveling to an Italian island to settle some affairs from his late father, and it turns out that his late father had an affair with a mistress on the island, and Jack Lemmon's falling in love with the daughter of the mistress, and he's going in a similar situation. That premise is too thin of a narrative to be 2.5 hours. So there was just so much random filler in this movie, and there were some aspects that just got pretty boring after a while. It's not a horrible movie. I like aspects in it, but I think if you would trim the fat of this movie, I think it'd be much more memorable at the same time.
No comedy should be 2.5 hours long. Like, what was Billy Wilder thinking? Like,
It's
how?
not the it's not the first time he made a movie with that extended of a runtime. He did another one in the '60s called Irma La Deuce, which had the same problem. I've actually seen some comedies with extended runtimes. I think if you make a comedy that's more on an epic scope, I can forgive the extended runtime. Like there's It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which I think is like 2.5, 3 hours. And I think that movie's hilarious. So you could make an extended comedy with an extended runtime. You just have to have the right narrative and the right amount of gags that can extend the runtime to the way the story that works for the story. But just a movie with a simple premise did not need to be 2.5 hours, especially for a comedy.
Yeah, and I love Jack Lemmon. He's one of my favorite comedic actors, but I can't imagine them like stretching out that for that long. I mean, it almost feels like it's like a rib. Like, oh come on, 2.5. No, they actually did it. And you said the only reason it was R is because like some nudity. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the only reason it got an R rating. Like there's a joke in the movie where the the female lead ends up taking her clothes off and she starts swimming in the ocean naked. And we actually do see some female anatomy.
That would be borderline PG-13 nowadays, if you really think about it.
Yeah, but they didn't have the PG-13 rating at that time, but it's it completely caught me off guard because Billy Wilder didn't make normally didn't go there when it comes to edgier content, but now that I think there's the rating system and directors can have a little bit more creative freedom, I guess he's like, hey, I'm gonna do this nudity joke in this movie just so I can shock some people, and it definitely caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting it.
Anyway, what else you got?
Let's see. I'll share a couple more. I checked out two Richard Donner movies this past week, one of which was the 1994 Western Maverick. And this movie is adapted from the TV show of the same name, a show I'm not as familiar with, but it aired in the late 50s and the late 50s, early 60s, and it stars James Garner as the title character. This film version was directed by Richard Donner. Mel Gibson plays the title character Maverick, who is very much obsessed with poker, and he will do anything to get to this high stakes poker championship. He ends up teaming up with a female gambler played by Jodie Foster, and they conspire to raise enough money so they can both be in this poker tournament. But they also, even though they have the hots for each other, they also try to one up and double cross each other at the same time. James Garner, who played the character in the original series, does have a pretty fun appearance in this movie as a lawman who was on Maverick's trail. And I thought putting him in the movie was actually a very nice touch. And there's some very clever nods with the fact that he was the original actor in the original series and how he got cast in this movie, which was actually pretty cool. This was a movie I had never even heard of until when I was looking up the list of movies to do for this director project. And from rankings I had seen from other people who've seen Richard Donner's films, I had heard that this was seen as one of like Richard Donner's best hidden gem movies, and I could not agree more. In fact, this is now one of my favorite movies from the director. It's a great Western with some amazing cinematography, but the film embraces the comedy aspects of it very well. Mel Gibson and Jodie Foster have incredible chemistry together. The movie is laugh a minute funny from start to finish. And even though I'm not the most well versed in the game of poker, this is the movie where I was invested, even in the poker sequences of the movie, because there's a lot of subversions and twists and turns in the overall story as characters double cross each other all the time, and you don't know uh, where the story is going next. And I was completely entertained throughout the entirety of the movie. I enjoyed Maverick. This is, I think, of all the Richard Donner movies I've seen, it's probably my second favorite that I've seen so far, behind the original Superman. I wasn't expecting it to give it that high a score, but I really dug this movie.
Wow, only second. I mean, Donner has made some good stuff. Made some good stuff in his life, and that's number two. That's like good stuff right there.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth checking out. And then the other Richard Donner film that I've covered, and I'll be tackling it in a live stream coming on the channel this week with two other YouTubers. He also directed a movie called Assassins in 1995, and that movie stars Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Banderas as two hitmen who are after each other. And I was very much excited to see this one because you got two remarkable actors, Stallone, Antonio Banderas. Richard Donner's been very consistent, especially with action films. He's also done the Lethal Weapon films. I love those movies. And fun fact, this was actually the screenwriting debut of the Wachowskis. The Wachowskis actually wrote the screenplay for this movie long before they broke big with the Matrix movies. So you have some remarkable talent in this movie. Richard Donner directing, the Wachowskis writing, Stallone and Antonio Banderas starring. I was excited to see this. This is one of the most frustrating action movies that I've seen in quite a while. Excuse me. Sorry. For a premise that sounds awesome, for one, the story takes itself way too seriously. I couldn't get into the narrative because the movie just trods along at a snail's pace, and the movie doesn't like embrace the absurdity of its premise, especially when you got people like Stallone and Antonio Banderas who are pretty over the top usually in the movie that they're in. And yet the movie just plays itself so straight that I just struggled to get into the narrative. The movie is also ridiculously convoluted. Like the editing structure of this movie is so off that, no joke, I honestly did not know Stallone and Antonio Banderas' character were against each other until like halfway into the movie. And I think they set that up early, but I missed that somehow. And so I was confused at where the story was going. And then once it hit, I'm like, what? I don't know what's going on with this movie. Like I'm struggling to follow along with such a basic plot. There's just some throwaway plot devices in this movie, and the final twist in this movie, one of the most ridiculously stupid plot twists I've seen in an action movie. Like it makes absolutely no sense, and everything that was interesting about this movie pretty much derails itself in like the final 10 minutes. It's a movie that I did not enjoy at all. Stallone and Banderas are trying. There's a couple of it's a well polished movie as far as like filmmaking and stuff goes, but I couldn't follow a basic plot and the movie was so boring. So Assassins is a failure in my book.
And isn't that just the worst when you think of how tantalizing something is on paper? You're just like, oh, this is gonna be good, and then just like, it's like falls completely flat.
Yeah.
It honestly is worse than when you look at something and be like, oh, that's gonna be completely horrible. It's like the anticipation builds, and then when it doesn't meet it, it's like let down city right there.
Yeah. I was hoping I would get into this movie because I'm a fan of the actors, and Richard Donner hasn't disappointed me this bad, especially post Superman. But whew, this one was not good. And then come to find out, it has like a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yep, definitely listen to the tomatoes on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of, before we move on, I wanted to ask you, when you get to 16 blocks on your Donner series, could you please have me on for that? Because that's low key one of my favorite Donner movies. I don't feel like anyone talks about it, and I've always wanted to talk about it on with someone. So when
Oh,
you get
yeah, I will consider that. I've never even heard of that movie.
yeah, it's one of my favorite cop movies, and like I said, nobody talks about it, and so keep me in mind when you do get to 16 blocks because I
Yeah,
love.
I think I'm down to the last four movies. I think from Richard Donner. I think he did one. I think it's Conspiracy Theory, Lethal Weapon 4, and then I think he did one called Timeline, and then the last one I'm covering is 16 Blocks.
Yep, that sounds about right.
All right, so I'll definitely consider you for that. And then the last thing I wanted to share is that this past week, I've decided to start watching Downton Abbey. I decided, after several recommendations from other YouTubers, you included, you're such a big fan of the show. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get into Downton Abbey now because I don't want to watch the new movies. Excuse me. I don't want to watch the new movies and be lost on certain character developments and plot points. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start the show and to get into these characters and the series as a whole. And so I watched the first episode this past week. The series is available to stream on Peacock if you have the streaming service. And the first episode I thought was really, really good, considering I'm not the biggest fan of period piece movies and shows. The movie has to have the right balance of storytelling and characters to get me fully immersed in it. And Downton Abbey definitely did that. Like from episode one, it does a great job of setting up the characters, the high class people who live in Downton Abbey, to the workers and staff that work within the halls of this place. And I highly enjoyed seeing all these characters at different facets of life and seeing like the balance or the counterbalance of the different classes of society and how they react to certain things and how they perceive certain events. Like this episode, the series opens right like the day after the sinking of the Titanic. So it was interesting seeing people's reactions to that from different perspectives. I enjoyed this episode overall. I did enjoy all these characters. I was even shocked at some of the guest appearances in this movie. Like Charlie Cox guest starred in this episode as the main Duke who shows up. And honestly, I didn't know he was British. So that completely caught me off guard. And I thought he was pretty memorable in this episode. I felt so bad for the valet character. I think Bates is the guy's name because there's a plot in the episode where he's hired to be the valet, but he's crippled because he got injured in the army. And so some people treat this guy like absolute crap because they think he can't do his job because of this little handicap that he has. And the character that I hate the most in this entire series, just in this one episode alone,
Wait,
is
let me guess. Barrow?
is it the Footman? That guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas. I thought was his.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's him.
that character. I could not stand this character because he was so antagonistic towards a crippled army vet. Like he trips the guy over on purpose to try to sabotage his chances of getting a job, all because he's jealous that he didn't get the job for himself. It's a job he's always wanted. He's like, I've worked too hard for this. I'm not letting some army vet do it who just got there like yesterday. Oh man, you know you're doing a good job acting wise when you are making the character an absolute dirtbag. So yeah, I definitely have to give that actor man props for that. I enjoyed this first episode and I'm excited to see where the series goes from here. It's pretty good so far.
I don't want to spoil anything for you, but let's just say that Barrow gets worse. Like he does some pretty scummy things. However, and again, I want to be careful with what I say, it kind of reverses itself to where you're also cheering for him by the end. Again, I hope I'm not
Ooh,
spoiling anything specific, but
but
it's
yeah, just
but
have to wait and see because so far my impression on him is I can't stand this guy. I hope they fire him at some point.
oh yeah, especially like the first couple of series, like he's just the worst, and I'm just sitting there like, get this dude off of this property right now. But like I said, by the end, you do actually warm up to him. But that's all I will say. And yeah, I remember watching this episode for the first time. I was like, this is not what I normally go out of my way to see. But just yeah, I was won over by it, and I'm glad you were won over by it too. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you think of the rest of the show, because it's a show that just gets better and better as the series go on.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. Hey,
All right.
so what
Well,
have you been watching?
so it's mine is honestly kind of boring. I just have one thing to share, but I actually started on Netflix. I actually started watching Peaky Blinders. Now I had started it but kind of stopped it, and so I just randomly decided, you know what? I think it's time for me to finally like complete this show. And this is based on a true story about the Peaky Blinders. They were a street gang in early 19 not early but late 1910s Britain, uh, and they were based out of Birmingham. They were very violent, but this show has gotten just rave reviews from everybody. I started it, stopped it, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to start it again. And I am so sad that I stopped it because this show is awesome. Killian Murphy is the main guy as Thomas Shelby. He's awesome. In this season, Sam Neill from Jurassic Park and In the Mouth of Madness, among other things, is in here, and he is phenomenal. Like, if you just know him from Jurassic Park, watch him in this show, and you will be blown away because he just transforms. Like, he's a completely different person here. I won't say much because I believe it's something that people should go out of their way to see. So I won't spoil it here, but the show is just fantastic, and its final season is coming very soon. So it's going to be nice that this show is getting an ending. But I love Killian Murphy, and I love this show also.
Yeah, like I've only heard of this show by name only, so it's cool that you're checking this show out and you're recommending it. Now I'm kind of intrigued to check this series out as well. Killian Murphy is such an underrated actor. Like if you just know him just for playing the Scarecrow in Batman Begins, there's more to Killian Murphy than that. It seems like every time I see him in something, he's usually one of the best aspects about it. I mean, look no further than A Quiet Place 2. I enjoyed his addition to that movie as well. I'm glad that he has a show that people can look at and appreciate what he has to offer. And I think I've heard this is one of his defining performances as well. So I'm gonna have to check that series out sometime. Maybe I'll tackle that after Downton Abbey. We'll see.
Yeah, also another good one is his performance in Dunkirk, as
Oh yeah.
literally his IMDb, like his performance is called Shivering Soldier.
Okay.
That's literally the name of his character is Shivering Soldier, but he is awesome in that. He's awesome in this very underrated movie called Anthropoid, which I recommended a long time ago on Hidden Gems, which I think is a really good World War II movie. Just whenever Cillian Murphy is on screen, he just hits it out of the ballpark. Like he was in Tron Legacy as Edward Dillinger. He was In Time, which I think is a very underrated sci-fi movie. He was Robert Fisher in Inception. It's like you look down his list and it's like, there's not a bad thing in here, is there?
Yeah, he's such a good actor.
All right, well, let's dig into Daredevil Season 1, Episode 12. And called The Ones We Leave Behind, if I believe that's the correct title. But we are almost at the end of Daredevil season 1, and the next time that we meet, we're going to be getting to the finale. And I am so looking forward to see what you have to say about that because, oh man, like stuff goes down. That's all I will say. But what did you think of the episode, Jacob?
Man, this series has just gotten better and better. It's the more we keep watching it. Like this, I just keep getting blown away by just uh, the overall maturity of this show. The beginning, we have Karen struggling with PTSD after what happened in the last episode, killing Wesley, and she's scared that Wilson Fisk is going to come after her. Like I knew that she was like she had a dream early on where Kingpin stops by and like grabs her in the face and starts like ripping her eyes out. I'm like, okay, I know this is a hallucination, and I was right that that was a dream, but that was still a pretty intense moment in that episode. And there's some other excellent stuff in here as well. I love the parkour, Matt Murdock jumping on the rooftops, going after that Chinese woman, trying to take down that operation that she has on the side, and he does that heroin factory bust. That action scene was awesome. I enjoyed seeing the choreography in that. It was really cool that we got to follow other characters as well, like Ben. Ben Urich slowly becomes a character that I highly enjoy even up to this episode. And it's fun seeing, I think some stuff start to piece itself together. Like we start to find out that even people that work for Wilson Fisk are tired of dealing with him and they're trying to take him out as well. And they even tried to murder Fisk at the party and they got Vanessa instead. I mean, that was a neat little touch, and I'm curious how that's going to play out in the next episode. Uh, I'm kind of hoping Wilson Fisk goes crazy on the Shawshank Redemption guy because we found out he's going behind his back too. So I'm kind of hoping Fisk takes that guy out. I think that'd be a fun little confrontation. We'll see where that goes. But the thing that shocked me the most in this episode, I had a feeling something was going to happen to Ben because it focuses so much on his character and that, he got fired from his job at the newspaper because he was snooping around too much, and he's got the okay to he got the okay from his wife to post this Kingpin hit piece on the internet, and he was just about to do that, but the Kingpin shows up and he's interrogating him and he's confronting him, and I'm like, okay, this isn't gonna be good. And then Wilson Fisk says the magic words, I'm not here to threaten you, but I'm gonna kill you. And then he just goes up and strangles him to death. I'm like, holy cow! I knew something bad was gonna happen to Ben Urich, but I wasn't expecting it to be in this brutal of a fashion. I don't think it's near as graphic as the car door decapitation we saw earlier in the series, but ooh, that was nuts. Don't mess with the Kingpin.
Yeah, really, really don't. And shout out to Von D. Curtis Hall, who plays Ben Urich, since he was killed off on this show. I mean, he put in a great performance, and I just wanted to shout out that he was actually Captain Prince in the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet. He's the dude in the helicopter saying, "Put your vile weapons to the ground," or whatever the quote was. He was that guy. He was also in Falling Down, an underrated Joel Schumacher movie, Broken Arrow. Like, look down his list and you're like, wow, he has been in a ton of stuff. It's just funny how these TV shows work where they get these character actors, but, you look up and down their list and be like, they have been in some stuff.
Yeah, and it's really cool that when they do stuff like that, because half the time you don't know the names of the actors, but you recognize their faces. I'm sorry if I'm going off topic, but it was the same thing for me with Paddington. Like I had seen the Earl guy in Downton Abbey before. I'm like, but I've never seen, but I don't know that guy's name. Hugh Bonneville, who was also Mr. Brown, the human father in the Paddington movies. I'm like, man, it's cool picking up on some of these actors when you're not familiar with their names.
Well, if you need a posh guy, you call Hugh Bonneville. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, this uh, this is definitely, like I said, this is definitely the calm before the storm. I won't say anything further, but oh boy, there is a lot that happens. There is a lot that happens in the final episode of the season, and I will say no more because it's honestly worth seeing for yourself. But big sky point to Ben Urich. He was one of the good ones. But what did you all think of Daredevil season 1, episode 12? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, let's get into the main event for the evening. We haven't talked about this show yet because we've had other things to cover, but Obi-Wan Kenobi has dropped on Disney Plus, and as of this recording, there is 3 parts, and we're recording this on a Monday night. This will go up on Wednesday, which means part 4 will have dropped. And I've and of course, I guess we might as well rip this Band-Aid off. Just the whole thing about the actress who's playing Reva. I can't remember her name. It's
Moses Ingram.
Moses Ingram, thank you. And I wasn't deliberately forgetting her name. I suck at names sometimes, so it's not a slight. It's just how my brain works, I suppose. But I mean, honestly, I have nothing unique to add to that whole thing. Honestly, Ewan McGregor's Instagram post really just hit the nail right on the head. I just don't see why this has to happen. It's like, if you don't like something, just don't watch it. Like, why bother like going after going after the actors for things that you just don't like? I will never understand that. It just boggles my mind. Like, hate watching just confuses me. It's like, if you were going to hate it in the first place, just don't watch it. Like, there are like thousands of shows you could be talking about. Like, say, like like Yellowstone, for example. I've heard nothing but good things about Yellowstone, but maybe you should watch that. Or, I don't know, Better Call Saul. That's the best show on television right now. But I'm rambling. The point I'm trying to get at is that we can't talk about Star Wars now without something controversial popping up. And it makes me sad. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing bad takes on both sides about Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, Solo, a Star Wars story. It's like we were finally out of that jungle, and then this happens. It's just a sucky situation. I feel so sorry for Moses Ingram. She is literally one of the best parts of this entire show. And I'm not trying to be pandering. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Especially at the end of part 3. Good Lord, that whole thing was just scary as hell. But anyway, I guess I'll descend from my soapbox now, and Jacob, you have the floor if you have to add anything.
Yeah, like I felt so bad for the actress when I heard that people were targeting her and harassing her and sending her death threats because it's not warranted. I legit love this character, and Moses is doing a great job at playing such a scary, intimidating villain. And I think it's really cool that we're seeing somebody who's just evil because she wants to be evil. We don't tend to see too many villains nowadays that just embrace being how bad that they are. And we're getting that with this Reva character. And I personally really love that. I think that's very refreshing. I love how intense her performance is in all three of the episodes. And she's one of the highlights of the series for me. Now, I'm always one to say if you don't like a certain character, it's fine to hate that certain character. So if you hate the Reva character for some reason, that's not the problem. The problem is taking your hatred to the person playing the character and trying to discredit her and ruin her life and stuff. That's never a good thing. It's an unhealthy thing to do. And it really frustrates me that there's a group of people online that keeps doing that to these different Star Wars actors. And it's so frustrating because there's so many fans. I'm a fan. I know you're a fan of this show, and there's other people I know in the YouTube space that love Star Wars. Like I have a buddy I know named Anthony A. Perez who's been to different Star Wars celebrations over the years, and he's vlogged different occasions of going to the Star Wars celebration. And honestly, if you want to divide this up between the fans of people, I'd say there's the toxic group of people that tend to take over the internet whenever Star Wars comes, and then there's the dedicated fans who do not act this way. I've seen people online who say every Star Wars fan is toxic and they destroy the franchise, and that is just not true. Because if you look at some of these Star Wars celebration vlog videos, especially the ones my friend Perez has done, and he went to the last one too that just happened a couple weeks ago. There's no toxic fan in these celebrations. It's just people that love Star Wars, whether they grew up with the original trilogy or they grew up with the prequel trilogy or enjoy the current stuff owned by Disney. It's just a group of fans who come together and celebrate everything in the world of Star Wars. And it's really inspiring to see, especially uh, counterbalancing this toxic crap that we see all the time on Twitter, which is so frustrating. I don't get some of these bad takes at all. Like I even saw a take just before we started recording. Somebody said that they were talking about this exchange between Obi-Wan and young Leia, and Leia's like, "Are you my father?" And Obi-Wan's like, "Well, I wish I was." And somebody's like, "That's a slap in the face to Anakin and Padme's relationship," and that somebody believed that that implies that Obi-Wan slept with Padme. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't get the reasoning behind some of these toxic bad takes that just make absolutely no sense.
Yeah, to the author of that bad take, in the words of comedian Ron White, the next time you have a thought, let it go.
Yeah. And it's very frustrating seeing some of the toxicity pop up again. Because, like you said, Ryan, I thought, after the sequel trilogy, I thought we were done with that. People were hyped up on The Mandalorian, and the Clone Wars had its final season, and well, the Book of Boba Fett had some mixed reactions, but it wasn't like crazy toxic like the sequel trilogy was. But now we're getting back to the really bad toxicity again because people dislike a character because of her race, and then they think there's plot developments that contradict previous Star Wars movies, which I don't buy any of it at all.
Yeah, and I want to echo a point that you said. Not all Star Wars fans are toxic. Far from it. Honestly, from what I've seen, the toxic ones are are fortunately in the minority. However, at times they are a very vocal minority, and so there is Star Wars love. You just have to look for it. For example, one of the channels that I'm subscribed to is called Star Wars Explained. I first encountered them, the creators, Alex and Molly Damon, when they were on the movie Trivia Schmodown, and they just knew like every single little detail about Star Wars to the point where I was like, wait, that was even a thing? And it turns out that yes, it was. And every May the 4th, they do a complete Star Wars canon, and it's just like, wow, like how long have people like planned and thought of this? So it's such a rich world. It just feels like people just want to keep it contained in like this neat little bubble when it's far from it. It's movies, TV shows, it's books, it's comic books. Honestly, with the whole Reva character, it was a bit weird because I thought this screamed for something like a Dr. Aphra type character, which for context's sake, Dr. Aphra is primarily in the Marvel Darth Vader comics, and she became so popular that they dedicated a spin-off series to her. That's how popular she was. And she was an evil architect, and she would build these droids and these unique buildings for Darth Vader. Her loyalty was to him. It wasn't like a romantic kind of thing as far as I know, but it was like a partners kind of thing. The Reva and Vader relationship, and we'll talk about that as we get into the actual show. It feels a lot like that, where they both want certain things, but they don't want to let the Emperor know what they're doing. So it's like adversity makes for strange bedfellows kind of thing, and I appreciate that. But I don't know. I don't really want to talk about this for much longer. It sucks. I feel sorry for Most Singram because she was actually in a movie earlier this year called Ambulance, the Michael Bay movie, and she only has a couple of scenes, but I did like her in those scenes. So, like I said, it's just a horrible situation, and I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Jacob, before we moved on, but I think we should get into the show proper.
Yeah, I think the last thing I wanted to say is I really hope this toxicity doesn't bring her down because as soon as people found out about it, there's been an overwhelming love of support for the actress. Like Ewan McGregor messaged something that I watched and retweeted, and Lucasfilm has stood by her as well. So hopefully this doesn't bring her down because I'd love to see her in more projects depending on you know what the character does. If she makes it through Kenobi, where if she gets killed off, it's one thing. But like if she's in other projects, I would love to see this actress in more Star Wars stuff because I really dug this character.
Yeah, the last thing we need is another Kelly Marie Tran situation. I mean, that was just horrible what happened to that poor woman. And I'll be transparent, I wasn't a fan of Rose in The Last Jedi, but that had nothing to do with Kelly Marie Tran as a human being. She seems like a wonderful person, and I've actually seen her in interviews. She seems like a wonderful human being. It just so sad what happened to her, and it's so sad that it's happening again. So it just feels like we're stuck in this quagmire of like it's like Star Wars has almost become like a political issue. There's no right answer. It's like, oh, I like this. Oh, so you mean you don't like this? And it's just like it's sniping and bitching at each other. It's self-defeating, and it just sucks. It really does.
Yeah, I think what I tend to do in these situations, like if I encounter a toxic fan, I try to say my piece on the matter. But if it becomes a toxic, heated argument, I just back away and walk away from it because the last thing I want is to get involved in a heated battle. And that's happened with other uh, franchises with pretty divisive fan bases as well. Like between this and the DCU, those are like some of the most toxic fan bases and movie franchises, I would say, at the moment. And I don't want to get involved in that. I'd like to share, what I love about Star Wars. And sadly, I was very surprised by the divisive reaction to this series. I thought this would be universally praised, but sometimes you just can't get what you want.
I suppose so, but I guess this is as good place as any to jump into the show prior, and I think we can both agree that we have been enjoying it very much. And and I don't think I need to go into the general plot. I think we can talk about some spoilers. I mean, it's been out specifically what happens in episode 3 for quite a bit now, so I think it's pretty safe to talk about spoilers, so I just think we should get into that. And honestly, I was not concerned at all that Ewan McGregor would like fit into this character once again, just like your most comfortable pair of shoes. But I was surprised at how good he was. It's like he never lost a single step, fair to say.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like even before going into the show, I knew Ewan was not going to lose his touch. He had been vocal about wanting to return to Obi-Wan for quite some time, and this was the perfect series to bring him back into this character, playing the character at a more broken stage in his life, set right smack dab in the middle between episodes 3 and 4. He doesn't want to be involved in the Jedi anymore. He felt responsible in a way for what happened to Anakin. And you really feel the brokenness of his character, especially in episode 1, because there's events around him where people want him to step up and do what's right, but he's kind of given up on life. There's even a Jedi that's being hunted in Tatooine that's trying to reach for Obi-Wan for help. He's like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And sure enough, that young Jedi gets hanged. And so there's definitely some dark undercurrents in that. But Ewan just sells the emotions of that. Um, to me, what's fascinating, and I think Brian, I think you might disagree with me on this because I know you've talked about not being a fan of the sequel trilogy, but Ewan's performance in this movie reminds me a lot of Mark Hamill in The Last Jedi. Now, I know we'll have our disagreements on that, but I personally enjoyed Mark Hamill's performance in The Last Jedi, who plays a similar broken down version of Luke Skywalker. For some reason, I love seeing broken down versions of these characters where you see them at their lowest of lows, so that when they actually come around and come back on top, it's actually very satisfying. And it's the same way so far with this Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I think Ewan has been fantastic so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually do kind of disagree. However, I do understand where you're coming from. So it's like a respectful disagreement, if that makes any sense. I also want to give a shout out to young Leia because she has been awesome. Like, I don't know if she studied at all for this. I mean, I imagine she did, but like, she's like young Carrie Fisher. It's almost like scary how she's been able to pick up the Leia like mannerism, not mannerisms, but like the kind of ticks, so to speak. It's honestly like just awesome, and like, especially in episode 1, is like you cannot look at this little girl and think, "Oh, that's obviously not Leia." Like that is Leia, 100%. And also, shout out to Jimmy Smits for returning as Senator Organa. It's always nice to see him.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that last part. And same goes to Joe Edgerton, who reprised his role as Uncle Ben, who played the character in the prequel trilogy. So that was pretty cool to see that continuity continue even in this project. But I do agree, Ryan. Young Leia has been awesome. I was not expecting her to be a prominent role in this series. I'm thinking, okay, if we get a little bit of Leia, it's just more so in the background. I thought we'd get a little bit more of young Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi as we spend some time on Tatooine, particularly in the first episode. But honestly, it all makes sense. Of all the characters to propel Obi-Wan to go back out on another mission, it would have to be it would have to be Luke's sister, because Obi-Wan's dedicated to protecting the two twins so they can grow up and be the new hope for the galaxy. And so it makes sense why they like Leia would be the one that would spark Obi-Wan to go back on this mission and do some Jedi stuff once again. And I actually really enjoy the back and forth between Ewan McGregor and the kid who plays Leia. She does feel like a younger version of the character, and I'm sure Carrie Fisher's somewhere going, oh, wow, she's doing an incredible job. I'm really enjoying this character so far, and I'm very much excited to see the last 3 episodes and see the payoff of that.
Yeah, what do you think of Vader? I mean, just good lord.
Oh,
Like, I have my significant problems with the Disney Star Wars movies, but Disney Star Wars knows how to treat Darth Vader. They have treated him like just as soon as he arrives on the scene, you're like, you might as well run because you've got no chance. And that goes double for episode 3, where he's like, you get a choke. You get a choke. See, you back there, you get a choke. This entire village gets a choke. And it's just so terrifying. And shout out to James Earl Jones, still in his early 90s, still crushing it in this role. Like, he just kills it.
I agree entirely. Darth Vader, I was not expecting him to have as big of an impact in episode 3, but man, he did some really crazy stuff in that movie, choking people left and right. He corners Obi-Wan and they get into a fight. And I've seen some people say they were disappointed in the fight, but I had a feeling going in, Obi-Wan wasn't prepared to fight. He wasn't expecting to get involved in another lightsaber battle. And, Darth Vader just overpowered him just because Obi-Wan wasn't prepared. I know people at Lucasfilm were saying, oh, prepare for the big rematch of the century. I don't think this is the rematch. I think going forward on the series, I think Obi-Wan will have to find ways to better prepare. And I have a feeling we'll get the rematch. I'm assuming in the finale episode. That's just what I think, without diving too heavy into plot speculations. Because if this was the rematch, I'm sure that would tick so many people off. But what we saw, it was very brutal stuff. Like Darth Vader burning Obi-Wan as revenge for what happened to him years prior. That honestly shocked me. I was not expecting Darth Vader to go this hardcore on his former master. And even going back to Ewan McGregor's performance, I never really took this into perspective, but I never in my life as a Star Wars fan realized that a good chunk of this time of Obi-Wan's exile, he was thinking that he had killed Anakin Skywalker. And this series being like the realization that Anakin and Darth Vader are one the same. That was a very powerful moment for me. I'm like, man, I was actually really shocked that it took him this long to piece it together. And I guess it kind of makes sense if you think you killed your former master or your former Padawan who was like the brother you never had. I'm sure that's going to take a toll on you. So
Yeah,
it's
and it's weird. I know it's technically canon. The Emperor gifted Mustafar to Vader in one of the books. I can't remember, but isn't it just bizarre that Vader would like make his home on the very place where he got his very significant injuries? I don't
yeah.
know. It would be like Rocky moving to Vegas after the death of Apollo Creed. It just like it's a weird flex, but I mean, maybe it's just a reminder of what he's shooting for, like a very hot vision board. I don't know, but
I guess I never figured that out myself. I'm like, it's kind of weird. The place where he nearly died is now the place where he reigns.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe he just likes the ambiance. Maybe lava crawling over rocks is nice white noise. I don't
I
know.
guess I don't understand Darth Vader's internal mind, but he's an awesome villain. One
Yeah.
of the best villains in movie and TV history.
What did you think of Kumail Nanjiani in episode 2? Because I wasn't a fan of him at first, but by the end, I kind of liked him. What did you think?
I actually really enjoyed his character. I thought it was kind of funny that in a series like Kenobi, we got someone who claims he's a Jedi, but he's actually a con man. And I think of all of the comedic actors to pull that off, I think Kumail Nanjiani was probably the best choice you could do for a character like this. And it was fun seeing him kind of have a little mini redemption arc as well because he scammed a lot of people in his time. but he's willing to help out Obi-Wan and Leia because Obi-Wan actually he needs that contact pretty much, and I enjoyed seeing him kind of grow a little bit by the end of that episode. Pretty fun little character.
Yeah, at first I was like, I do not like you. But by the end, he started doing the right things. I'm like, okay, now I like you. So he definitely won me over there. But I just it's interesting. We're sitting here and part 4 will be dropping by the time this drops, or has dropped by the time this drops. So what do you think, Jacob? You said that this is not the final time that Obi-Wan and Vader will meet. I do not doubt that for a second. I think they're saving up for something bigger. I saw online a theory that they're going to be showing like Obi-Wan and Anakin in like their Clone Wars armor, which if that happens, then that I'll be a happy man because because the animated and like live action form is like you can give me all of that, please. But do you have any predictions before we?
I know they've been talking about Hayden Christensen making a proper reappearance in Star Wars, and I have a feeling that's probably going to be in flashbacks. So if we get some of that going forward, I can't wait to see what they're going to do with that because Hayden Christensen was one of the most criticized aspects of the prequels, and I'm excited to see I guess his return to Star Wars and see if he'll win people back over. I've always defended Hayden Christensen, especially in Episode 3. Anything that was against him, I would say, was more so the writing, more so than Hayden as an actor. And I've really enjoyed him as Anakin, especially like I said when he makes the transition from light to dark in Revenge of the Sith. Like he completely embraced the bad side of Anakin Skywalker, which I love. Another thing that I've been noticing in the first 3 episodes, there's been some instances where Obi-Wan is trying to contact Qui-Gon Jinn. And as we all know, as they teased at the end of episode 3, the Force Ghost of Qui-Gon has showed up to help further train Obi-Wan with additional teachings, particularly the art of immortality and force ghosting and stuff. And I have a feeling they've been teasing this. I think we're going to get Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn at some point in this series. Now, I don't think they've actually confirmed that Liam Neeson is going to show up, but I have a feeling based on recently with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man No Way Home, they might be hiding that from us because they don't want to reveal such a big reveal. So if Qui-Gon shows up in at least one episode of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series played by Liam Neeson, it's going to take a show I already love and increase by 10 because I've always loved Qui-Gon as a character, and I've always wanted to see Liam Neeson do more stuff in the Star Wars universe. And if this is a show to bring him back in some capacity, man, that's going to be an amazing experience.
Yeah, if they do bring him back, I think they would keep something like that, like laser, like airtight. No one even knows about it. But if they do bring him back, like, that would be just insane, and I would love it. I would love every minute of it. I don't have any super big predictions. It would be crazy to think if they brought like Ahsoka in for some of this action, but again, that's like way out of bounds. I don't think that'll happen, but it would be cool if it does because shout out to Rosario Dawson, but she is awesome as Ahsoka, and I would love to see her. But that's my big prediction. So, what do you all think of Obi-Wan episodes 1 through 3? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say about it. And that's all for us. That's another episode in the books. Just a brief programming note before we throw to our plugs and such. Jacob and I are going to be both on vacation in the next week. I'm going to be in Utah, like I mentioned. Jacob's going to be on a camping trip. So there will be no episode next Wednesday. I know how to speak. However, the next Wednesday we will be back to our regular schedule. So, bit of a week off, but we will be back with full regalia in the next time. So, Jacob, thank you so much as always. It's always a pleasure. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can also subscribe to my 2 YouTube channels. My second channel is Storytime with Jacob, where I do book reviews and read-alongs on my second channel. I have just started Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, rereading that for the first time in many, many years. It's been fantastic diving back into the Wizarding world once again, and reminded me of why I love that series in the first place, especially Prisoner of Azkaban. Is not only is that one of the best books, but it's also one of the best movies in the series for sure. And then over on my main channel is where I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, and other fun stuff on my channel. I got some really awesome content coming this week. Videos that just recently dropped on my channel. I did a recent Celebrating Disney review where I reviewed Finding Nemo, one of my favorite Pixar movies. My most recent Superhero Saturdays video was on Spider-Man No Way Home. We all know how awesome that movie is. I've also recently reviewed Billy Wilder's Avanti, which I talked about earlier on the podcast. I got a review of Richard Donner's Maverick. I got a live stream coming to the channel this week where me and 2 of my other YouTube friends, Rashaji Reviews and Blacktastic Media, who are both big Sylvester Stallone fans, will be talking about Assassins. And I think based on the conversations I've had with both of these people, they're not a fan of this movie either. So I think it's going to be a big epic roast on the movie Assassin. So be on the lookout for that. My episode 1 review of Downton Abbey will be dropping this week, along with my review of The French Dispatch, wrapping up my Wes Anderson director project, along with a Wes Anderson ranking. So there's definitely a lot of exciting content coming on the channel this week. Definitely feel free to subscribe to both of my channels if you haven't already, and just be excited for some awesome content that I do.
Very good. Well, both of his channels and his Twitter will be linked in the description. Go follow him on all of that. And as far as this channel goes, I will be having Obi-Wan Kenobi reviews for episodes 3 and 4 as they will be dropping. And I'm actually going to be having a couple of special videos since I will be away. I'm going to be having some special videos just to spice things up a bit, but those are going to be a secret, so you'll have to pay attention to the channel to find that out. And then, of course, my vlog for my Utah trip, I will make that as I go along, and I will post updates of that as it goes along, but I'm looking forward to all of that. But that is all for us. For Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. Please do take care.